Greetings. Today I'm going to make some Oreo Chunk Cookies. So yes, I'm going to take Oreo cookies and make them into another cookie by adding a bunch of sugar. That's just great. I'm using this recipe I found online from Dinner Then Dessert. The author of the recipe is Sabrina Snyder. So to start off, I've got 1 cup of softened butter. How do you get softened butter, you might ask? Well, you leave it out on the counter overnight. It's going to be okay. And so it'll soften up, and that'll allow you to blend it with your sugars. So you start off with your white sugar and your firmly packed light brown sugar. Put that in there into your mixer, and then you mix that until it's well combined. So I'll do that here.
Or you can pop it in the microwave for 5 seconds. The butter.
My bride just said you could pop the butter in the microwave for 5 seconds. I prefer to leave it out on the counter and let it naturally soften. You really need to get the sugar combined with the butter well. It helps coat the sugar, and that helps in the baking process. Your cookies turn out better when your sugar is really combined well with your butter. I'm sure there's a word for that I've read somewhere or seen somewhere, but I can't remember right now what it's called. Maybe if you know, you might put it in the comments down below so everybody will find out. But there's a good reason to mix your sugars and your butter together. So now that they're all mixed together, we're going to add our vanilla and our eggs. 2 eggs. These are store-bought eggs. I'm not using my own chicken's eggs for this. We ate them all this morning anyway. And then vanilla. I make my own vanilla. I will probably post a video one day about how you can make your own vanilla, because it is very good. Homemade vanilla. And you're going to beat this until it's light and creamy. And what I've done as part of the instructions, I've sifted my flour and also sifted the salt and baking soda that goes with that. So that's what will go in next. Actually, no, you set it aside. That's something about recipes. Sometimes you're reading recipes, they ask you to do something, and then you're not immediately doing something with that. Next, you're supposed to add Oreo crumbs. And I've got them in the little container, a little chopper that I use to make them into crumbs. And I'll just add them straight from that. After your Oreo crumbs are added, then you add your flour in. See, the recipe writer has you sift the flour, set it aside, do something else, and then come back to the flour. So that's the reason you need to read your recipes very well. I'm going to add a little bit, come back and add the rest of it in a minute. Push this down around a little bit here. I really like using these sort of plastic spatulas. They work well. Wood works well as well, but I prefer the plastic for this kind of activity. And so we're supposed to run that till it's just blended, and that's just blended. And I will get it off of the beater bar here, because next we're supposed to add in some Oreo chunks. And so this recipe calls for Oreos that have been almost ground. You know, they're almost a powder-like consistency, that go into the you know, the flour type part of the recipe. And then you also take and chunk some Oreos. Now, when I read the recipe, it said to chunk them, crush them is what it said. So I tried that with my hands. It didn't work out really well, because when I crushed them with my hands, that Oreo filling, the white part, it just sort of got all over my fingers, and that didn't work out too well. So I wound up just chopping them with a knife. And so here's my Oreo chunks. And I asked to add about a third of them and just sort of fold them in. You can see the batter here is sort of thick, and so I'm just going to pour about a third of those guys in there, and just stir them in gently. I don't want to crush them up much more than they are now, because the recipe is called you know, Oreo Chunk Cookies, not Oreo ground cookies. And so now I've got them all sort of blended in there. Recipe asked for me to put this into the refrigerator for about an hour and let it chill, and then we'll bring it out, roll it in the chunks, and put it in an oven. All right, so we're back on these Oreo chunk cookies. I've already made a batch, cooked them in the oven, had some other things to do, and so we're back on those. Pulling the dough out of the refrigerator. We got the dough. You need to ball it up into about maybe a little bit bigger than a ping pong ball. The recipe says a tablespoon size. I don't really know what tablespoon size is in the ball, you know, because tablespoon normally is a liquid measurement. But, you know, about the size of a ping pong ball. And then what you need to do is roll it into this, you know, your Oreos that were crushed, or actually I used a knife and cut mine. And what you're going for is this, where your crushed Oreos are just sort of sitting on the outside of that dough ball. And so then you line them up on your baking sheet. I'm using a pan with a Silpat liner. You probably want to use parchment paper if you don't have Silpat, you know, to keep the cookies from sticking. But about 3 inches apart, you know, because cookies will spread in the oven, you know. So here's another one, you know, just with the Oreo crushed part just sort of sitting on the outside of that ball. And so I'm not going to make you watch me roll all these up. I will turn around here and get this batch that I cooked earlier out so you can see it. Here they are. This is the reason that you roll the ball in the crushed Oreos. You see how those Oreos are sort of sitting on the outside of that cooked cookie. If you were to, you know, integrate the crushed Oreos into the dough more, you know, it would just be, you wouldn't have these things sort of sticking on the outside. So, yeah, I guess it's aesthetics. It looks pretty neat. You can tell that all my cookies are not the same size. I'm not really worried about it. I just roll them into balls by eye. You could probably, if you wanted to, measure it out by weight. You know, get you a kitchen scale, make a ball, put it on there, see how much it weighs, and then make all your other balls the same size. So that's one way to get all your cookies the same size. Paul Hollywood would tell me, you know, that I failed because my cookies are not uniform. So anyway, there it is, Oreo Chunk Cookies, a way to use a cookie that you buy at the store, add a bunch of sugar to it, and make a different cookie. That's what works for me, mostly.